All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Lockup Shutdown podcast. My name's Monica. Joining me, as always, is my good friend Zach. How's it going today?
Going pretty good. Finished up week 17, which might have been the most eventful week out of all 17 weeks we've had of the season. I think it could create a storyline from almost every single matchup this week. And after that, now we get to go right into the first ever week 18 of the regular season. So can't complain right now for any football fans around the country right now. Got to be having the time of their lives watching football now as we get back into the late stages of the season.
Absolutely. It's our first ever week 18, but it's our last episode of the regular season, and I'm so glad to be at this spot. But today, we'll decide if the Bengals and Titans are teams ready to make some noise in the AFC playoffs, discuss Antonio Brown's mid-game retirement straight out of the book of Vontae Davis, and make our picks for the remaining races in the 2020 playoffs, including the elusive AFC first seed. But first, as always, it's our biggest surprise from the week behind. Zach, get this show on the road.
My surprise is going to come from the Tennessee Titans and Miami Dolphins game. Dolphins, we talked about winning 7 games in a row, and last week we talked about how far they could make it and if they could make it into the playoffs. And now you get to this week, and the Titans beat them by 31 points. Dolphins failed to get into the end zone at any point during the game, and Tua lived up to his nickname of Tua turned the ball over with three fumbles and an interception in this game. So horrendous display from the Dolphins as soon as Dolphins fans get hope, and the Titans show why they are now the 1 seed in the AFC after getting a few other favorable results, notably from the Chiefs losing. But good from the Chiefs, bad from the Dolphins, and that caught me by surprise this week.
It certainly was a fail by the Dolphins, and ultimately a fail to get into the playoffs as they've been mathematically eliminated. My personal biggest surprise was the Raiders squeaking past the Colts in a 23-20 victory. Carson Wentz was held to just 148 yards and a touchdown in what, from the beginning, seemed like a complete and total off day from him. He started off the game, 0 for 4, 0 for 5, 0 for 6. It was something along those lines before he finally completed his first pass, but it just didn't seem like Carson Wentz's day. Jonathan Taylor, as always, was carrying the team as he had 108 yards and a touchdown on just 20 carries. It is a shame that he didn't get that many touches as he might usually want to. You know, he's a very good... Jonathan Taylor is a very, very good running back. He's a 30 touch a game minimum kind of running back, and 20 touches when he already has 108 yards is kind of tough, but I get it was a close game and ultimately they didn't have much of a choice. But both offensively and defensively, the Colts seemed completely out of their groove, and that unfortunately led to the team suffering a surprising loss.
Yeah, this was a surprising game. A few storylines that we could talk about with the Colts. One thing is that we talked about how off they looked the entire day on Sunday, yet they were still right there with another playoff team and lost on a last-second field goal when it seemed like absolutely nothing was going right, yet they still are in the game and lose on a last-second field goal, which could prove how dangerous they are in the playoffs. That, hey, if you have a bad game, some teams will get blown out like the Dolphins did, but when the Colts have a bad game, they just lose the last second and could have pulled it out. And then on the Raiders side of things, this morning, get a notification on my phone that yet another Las Vegas Raiders player has been arrested with a DUI, and one thing after another with the Raiders, from John Gruden and scenario earlier in the season, and then Henry Ruggs later after that in the season with a DUI crash that unfortunately killed somebody. And you had Josh Jacobs as well, who's arrested last year on a DUI, and this morning it happened to be Nate Hobbs, the cornerback from the Raiders, who was charged with a DUI. So Raiders, one thing after another with them, but I guess on the football side of things, they are 9-7 and competing for a playoff spot.
We'll certainly talk a lot more about the Raiders later on in the episode, but I think for now it's time to move on. After 2 straight unbelievable performances against both the Ravens, albeit the practice squad, and the Chiefs, are the division champion Cincinnati Bengals, led by Joe Burrow and Ja'Marr Chase, a threat to take it the distance in this year's playoffs?
I think the Chiefs could be labeled the AFC champion favorites right now with the ground game they have with Joe Mixon, as well as obviously Joe Burrow, who's the topic of discussion right now. But with the receivers they have in Ja'Marr Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, I think the Bengals are turning into what everyone thought the Cowboys would be right now, and obviously beat the Chiefs, who were the 1 seed in the AFC heading into the week, and now are not anymore. But Joe Burrow throwing for almost 1,000 yards the last 2 weeks, as well as 8 touchdowns in the last 2 games. So I think Joe Burrow could maybe be a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. And with the weapons he has, as well as the Joe Mixon in the backfield, I don't see many teams being able to stop the Bengals.
The Bengals are a very, very, very good team, and obviously that Joe Burrow to Ja'Marr Chase connection is so unbelievably exciting, and I think we're going to see it for years and years to come, and it'll be one of the greatest quarterback-wide receiver duos that we've probably seen since maybe Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison, for all we know. However, I don't think that they'll get all the way to being the AFC champions. I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year. I think that it's possible they could be out by the conference championship week, and here's why. The Bengals have had the 3rd easiest schedule this entire season, and while they've beat some very good teams, including this week against the Chiefs, I just don't think they're going to be able to compete in this overly stacked AFC playoff bracket for 3 weeks in a row to make it all the way to the Super Bowl. There are so much talent in the AFC right now between the Colts, the Chiefs, the Titans. The Raiders could make the playoffs. The Chargers could make the playoffs. Both of those are very good teams. The entire AFC is a threat to the Bengals, and the Bengals is a threat to the entirety of the AFC. This is not a team that is going to be a first-round exit, but I don't consider them Super Bowl contenders. I just think that Joe Burrow, the entire team really, is just too young. I think that give them some more time, they are going to win a Super Bowl sometime in the next 5 years, give or take. But I don't think this year is the year of the Bengal, although it is the year of the Tiger.
Yeah, they are a really young team, which is the scary part, but at the end of the week, everyone was saying the Chiefs were the team to beat in the AFC, and they seem to shut down the Chiefs as much as anyone has for a lot of the season, at least in the at least through the air. But the Chiefs had some success on the ground game against the Bengals, but I think the Bengals could shock a few people, and who knows, they might be a Super Bowl contending team out of nowhere.
I definitely wouldn't be terribly surprised if that happened. Let's move on to another team that's doing a very good job and definitely was helped greatly by the Bengals as they beat the Chiefs this week, and that's the Tennessee Titans. With the 1 seed just a win away for Tennessee and Derrick Henry soon to make his return expected by the playoffs, are the Titans a force to be reckoned with that might have been overlooked this season?
I think they are. Everyone seemed to shut down the Titans' hopes after Derrick Henry was ruled out for most, if not all, of the regular season with his injury. And before his injury, he was the most dominant running back in the league, obviously, and we were talking about it, whether or not he was the best running back to ever play the game of football. So if he can get anywhere near that level, along with having Deontay Foreman as well, who's shown how capable he is of leading a backfield in Henry's absence, if the two of them are able to team up together, I think they could cause problems for a lot of teams. And a healthy Tennessee Titans team is yet another Super Bowl contender with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. If he's healthy, Ryan Tannehill, he's a solid quarterback. And then you got the really good defense that they have. So I wouldn't be shocked either if we may see a Tennessee Titans Cincinnati Bengals AFC Championship game.
So, are you saying that Derrick Henry and Dante Foreman could be the next running back tandem to grace the league? Regardless of our past takes and disagreements, I absolutely agree with you on this one. The Titans are most definitely one of the teams to beat, and if Derrick Henry does make it back for the playoffs, I don't think that the Titans are going to be a stoppable team. They've had one of the top 10 hardest schedules this year, yet still are the first seed despite not having their lead back for half of the season. And everyone was saying that Derrick Henry was the whole reason that the Titans were successful. Ryan Tannehill wasn't a good quarterback. These receivers aren't good. It's just Derrick Henry carrying them. Clearly, that was all just noise. Clearly, it was wrong. The Titans are one of the best teams in the league, and there's a reason they're in contention for the first seed, despite how hard their schedule has been so far. I think if any team this year is going to burst the bubble of the AFC playoffs, it's definitely got to be the Titans. I could 100% see the Titans being a team that bursts the bubble of the Chiefs, who have gone to 2 straight Super Bowls and could be the ones to knock them out of the playoffs for the first time. I think the Titans could have the potential to beat the Bills, who were my personal Super Bowl pick and honestly still are. However, that being said, the Titans might potentially face a loss to one of the great teams in the playoffs this year between the Bills, Chiefs, Colts, Bengals. Like I said in the last segment, ultimately, the AFC is a very, very, very tough playoff bracket to be in right now, and ultimately, the Titans, though they definitely have the potential to see the Super Bowl this year, I think that eventually, at some point, they're going to suffer a loss, whether that's in... I personally think it might even happen in the conference championship, if not at the divisional round.
Yeah, that is what makes the NFL playoffs so fun, is that it is a one-and-done game. So you have one bad game and you're done, which gives chances to teams we may not think of. But I think with the Titans, they're not gonna be one of those teams where they're gonna get upset early with the schedule you talked about there. Beating the Colts twice, beat the Bills, absolutely demolished the Chiefs, beat the Rams pretty easily, beat the 49ers and the Dolphins, snapped the Dolphins' 7-game winning streak this week. So Titans have done it time after time, and if they get their best player and maybe the best player in the league back, I don't see many ways to stop them. If you load the box, throw it to A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. If you try and go cover 2, stop the receivers, then you got Derrick Henry in the backfield. So not many ways to stop them. You can only hope to contain them, and that is why I'm so high on the Titans' chances in the playoffs this year.
100%. I'm sorry for the hiccup there. Let's move on to a topic that's a bit more interesting. It's not about any team's success in particular. It's not about any team that could potentially have success. It's not about a player who whether we're debating whether a player is good or not. Let's talk about Antonio Brown. Is AB's final glorious outburst the end for the wide receiver's career, and potentially the end of any Hall of Fame campaign he might have had left in him?
Be honest, I don't see the big deal with Antonio Brown. All he did was opt out of a game just like hundreds of other college players did this week.
Ooh.
No, all joking aside, that was about as idiotic of a scene I've witnessed in the NFL game before. He lived up to his Antonio Clown nickname, and I don't know. We want to obviously got to talk about it, but I don't really know how to describe it. He just left the field, walked across the field with no shirt in the middle of a game as the game was still going on, and if someone was gonna do it, it had to be Antonio Brown. But yeah, I think he's done. His career is done, but I wouldn't rule him getting getting inducted into the Hall of Fame out just yet. I think it would take a little bit more for him to ruin his Hall of Fame chances just because he's that good of a wide receiver, and that's why the Bucks took a chance on him with everything else that has happened with him the last 4 or 5 years.
Really? You really scared me. You had us in the first half, I'm not gonna lie. I definitely have to say, AB's career in the NFL is over for good. I don't think he's ever going to get his, 8th, 9th, 10th chance at this point? I mean, he went off the field and quit like me quitting Pee Wee football in 3rd grade, where I got really upset at the coach to throw my pads off and fucking ran out of the fucking stadium. That's basically what AB did, except he's a grown adult doing it. Ultimately, that is some real Antonio Clown behavior going on. There's a lot of mental health aspects going on here that ultimately might be a result of the NFL's concussion issue that will continue to haunt them for years and years to come. And I think when it comes down to it, Antonio Brown's career is over, and a lot of these things he's done in the last handful of years might honestly disqualify him from any chance at the Hall of Fame, like some of his avid supporters have continued to suggest. It's not just a matter of this final outburst. Ultimately, there were a lot of other off-the-field incidents that play into something like that, including a domestic assault that simply just can't be overlooked in the Hall of Fame. It's an honor for... Being a Hall of Famer is an honor for off-the-field success just as much as on-the-field success. And while a handful of existing inductees don't seem to fit that bill anymore, I think it should be considered, as far as future inductees go, that these people need to be accountable for their everyday successes, not only their successes on the field. And a Hall of Famer is ultimately born through a Hall of Fame mentality. I just don't think Antonio Clown has that kind of mentality in him anymore, at least.
Yeah. The difference between what I want to happen and what I think will happen are two different things. I'm with you on that. I don't want Antonio Brown in the Hall of Fame with everything he's represented. When you think of Antonio Brown, you don't think of all the good stories that he's had, unlike most Hall of Famers. And if you think of Antonio Brown off the field before you think of Antonio Brown on the field, whenever anyone even mentions Antonio Brown's name, and I don't think that should ever happen with a Hall of Famer, but I think with how dominant he's been, there's not many people who can have Tom Brady vouch for him as much as Brady vouched for Antonio Brown, bringing him to the Patriots and then bringing him to Tampa Bay, and having Antonio Brown live in his house for a few months while he was in Tampa. So Antonio Brown had chance after chance after chance, and Bruce Arians said if he messed up one time, he was done. Messed up one time, still got another chance after that, and now even further ruined his reputation and legacy with the Buccaneers and the NFL as a whole. And just like Brady said, I wish Antonio Brown all the best, but yeah, he's got multiple issues going on right now, and Hopefully he's able to clear things up post life after football, but after the last 24 hours, I don't see Antonio Brown putting on another NFL helmet and playing another game.
Absolutely. I have to agree with you, Antonio Brown. I certainly hope that Antonio Brown clears things up as time goes on, but the football field, the Hall of Fame, it's just not for him, I don't think. Let's move on to a brighter topic. There's a handful of teams full of hope still this season. As far as getting into the playoffs goes, just a handful though, just a handful. Let's pick some of the remaining playoff scenarios that we still have to deal with in Week 18. We'll start off with the first one. It's the fight for the 6th seed in the NFC between the 49ers and the New Orleans Saints. Now, if the 49ers get the seed, it'll be the 6th seed. If the Saints get it, it'll be the 7th seed. Who do you take for the 6th seed of the NFC, Zach?
I'm going to maybe surprise you and take the San Francisco 49ers. I know they've got the tougher matchup in LA against the Rams, while the Saints are in Atlanta against the Falcons, but I think the Rams have struggled the past few weeks, and although they did get the win this week against the Ravens, they only won by 1 against the Ravens. I would say the practice squad, but I think the Niners are hitting their stride at the right time, getting Elijah Mitchell back from injury as well as having Deebo Samuel. I think the Niners will repeat what they did earlier on in the season and beat the Rams once again. And that will unfortunately not even take into consideration what the Saints do against the Falcons, although I do think the Saints will still beat the Falcons. It just won't mean as much as I hope it'll mean.
I have to disagree with you. Ultimately, I have to look at the toughness of each game, and ultimately the Saints are facing a measly Falcons team that will be absolutely stomped even by the injury-filled Saints roster, whereas the 49ers, despite their upset of the Rams earlier this season, I don't think that they can do something like that twice. There's no way that they can sweep this Rams team that is so unbelievably incredible this season. The Rams team were coming off of a great win against Baltimore, ultimately a close win, but a win nonetheless. Ultimately, you're going to come out of that game proud of yourself, and you're going to take that pride, go into the next game against the 49ers, and knock them out of the playoffs this season.
The Niners have... I think the Niners are similar to the Ravens, but just in a different... They've been able to battle through the injuries and maybe are benefiting of playing in the NFC, but Matt Stafford has not been good, to say the least, the last 3 games. Threw 2 picks against the Ravens.
Leads the league in pick sixes.
Threw 3 interceptions against the Vikings the week before. And then against the Seahawks, had another pick and was sacked 4 times. So I think the Rams are not... You always say you want to be playing your best football at the end of the season when the playoffs start, and that could not be further from the truth right now for the Los Angeles Rams team.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just have to see if Matthew Stafford throws a pick 6 to Josh Norman at any point in the next week, but let's move on to the fight for the AFC 7th seed. I'm just going to assume that the Steelers won't be able to get a chance because I don't think that the Colts are going to be losing to the Jags anytime soon. So the fight for the 7th seed I'm presenting to you is between the Chargers and the Raiders. Tell me who you've got, Zach.
I'm going to take the Chargers in this one. Got multiple options after options after options with Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and the Chargers have been up and down recently, but I think when the lights are shining the brightest, the Chargers will be able to pull it out. And I know we've said it all season, and the Raiders have still gotten through it, but the distractions off the field even more. Yet another one this week, I think, will take away from the Raiders, and I think the Chargers will be able to capitalize. And I think the Raiders, for all their valiant efforts this season, will have nothing to show for it after the Week 18.
I'm a little bit surprised by that pick from you, considering earlier in the season you did mention that between the Chiefs and Chargers, only one of them would end up making the playoffs, but seems you've come to your senses a little bit. I think I have to stick with my guns from week 1, when I called the Chargers a dark horse to make the playoffs this season, and I think that's going to be the case even now. The Chargers are a dark horse who are most definitely going to be making the playoffs after they beat a distracted Raiders team. You basically taking every point off of my note sheet here, so I don't really have much to talk about here. So let's talk about the fight for the first seed in the AFC as we wrap things up between the Titans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know this one seems a little bit obvious, and I think that personally it is a little bit obvious of a choice. I don't think that the Titans are going to be losing to the Texans in a game where they could potentially be giving up the first seed. I don't think Davis Mills is going to be pulling any upset up against the Tennessee Titans, who could potentially have Derrick Henry this week. This one has to go to the Titans, and honestly, if you told me the Titans were going to be the first seed over the Chiefs earlier in the season, I think I'd be pretty surprised.
Yep, I think I would be more surprised with the Titans winning the AFC earlier on in the season than I'm going to be if the Titans actually don't get the championship right now. But I got to agree with you. I think the Titans will take care of business in Houston against the Texans. Texans are, we called them maybe one of the worst teams to ever play in the NFL earlier this year, and obviously they aren't at that level. They're able to beat a few teams on a given week if you don't show up ready, but with the significance of this game, I think Mike Vrabel and the Titans are going to be ready to take care of business. And Derrick Henry or not, I expect the Titans to come out on top over the Texans, which deems the Chiefs game against the Broncos meaningless, although I do still think the Chiefs will beat the Broncos.
Absolutely. Well, we can certainly talk about the Chiefs and Broncos right here and right now as we wrap things up with our lightning fast picks, the last of the 2021 regular season. Starting off, it's Saturday, January 8th at 4:30 p.m. on ESPN between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Denver Broncos. Seeing as you've just given your opinion already on that one, I think I'm going to have to agree with you there and say that the Kansas City Chiefs are most definitely winning this game. Next up, we've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this one's always a very exciting game, and especially in the new Week 18. However, as usual, I think I'm going to have to pick the Dallas Cowboys over the Eagles in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this one over the Eagles. Another one of those notifications I got on my phone this morning is that 12 Philadelphia Eagles players have entered COVID protocols, so Eagles challenge gets much harder, but even if they're fully healthy, I don't expect them to beat the Cowboys, and the Cowboys will rebound from their loss to the Cardinals last week.
Absolutely. Next up, we've got all of Sunday's games because we don't have any Monday Night Football this week. It's the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns to start us off. I think I'm going to have to pick the Cincinnati Bengals on this one, although I don't know if the Bengals will even be starting their... they'll probably be starting, because they're still technically in the race for the first seed. It's just very, very unlikely.
Yeah, there's still enough seeding to go around. They could drop enough between Buffalo and New England, both at 10-6 as well. So I think they're going to play their full lineup and beat the Browns, who looked absolutely abysmal against the Steelers. So who knows, maybe the Bengals backups could beat the Browns if they play them.
I certainly wouldn't doubt it. Next up, we've got the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Now, this is one team I certainly could get the socks beaten off them if any backup was playing against them, and certainly is the case in this game between the Packers and Lions. Give me the Packers, please. I don't care who's starting, whether it's Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, or Matt Flynn coming back.
Yeah, you could take Brett Favre in his current form and probably beat the Lions with this Packers team, so I'm going to take the Packers as well.
Next up, it's the other NFC North battle between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. This one's a pretty tough one, but I think I might have to pick the Chicago Bears in a surprising upset on this one.
I'm not going to go with the upset in this one. I'm going to take the Vikings at home over the Bears. I think the Bears are just ready for their season to be done and are counting down the minutes until they can go back to 0-0 and set up for the next season.
Next up, we've got the most abysmal game of the season between two NFC East powerhouses. It's the Washington football team and New York Giants.
Quite the build-up from you there to hype up this game, and I think the Washington football team will be able to end their season on a positive note with a win over the Giants, and Mike Glennon will be happy to not have to play any more games after he's been embarrassed the last few weeks with the Giants.
Absolutely. Certainly we'll be hoping for Daniel Jones to come back, and certainly I think I'd never have heard I don't think I would have ever thought I'd hear myself saying something like that, but definitely give me Washington football team, especially with Taylor Heineke coming back. Next up, we've got a pretty easy choice between the Indianapolis Colts and the Jags. I said earlier that I think the Colts are going to beat the Jags, and I don't think you have any space to disagree here.
Yeah, I would be crazy to say the Jags would win, but I'm going to take the Colts and give them a nice little warm-up game to get ready for the playoffs.
Next up, it's everyone's favorite AFC North battle between two teams that could potentially still make the playoffs, although with some very, very, very slim chances. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore local Taco Bell employees.
Yeah, Baltimore is hanging on by a thread. They had injuries from all the way from preseason up until this week that just would never stop for them, and unfortunately I don't think they'll be able to get it done against the Steelers in what could be Big Ben's last ever game as a Steeler if results don't go his way after just playing his last game at Heinz Field earlier tonight. But I'll take the Steelers in this
I'll
one.
certainly be hoping for it to be Big Ben's last game, but it's going to be Big Ben's last game ending with a W. Give me the Steelers in this one. Next up, we've got the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. I think we've both pretty much already established our points on this one, but just for the formality's sake, give me the Titans.
Yeah, give me the Titans in this one. This isn't one that's up for too much debate.
Next up, we've got the Saints and the Atlanta Falcons. This one's a pretty tough one, but seeing as I've already said it before, give me the Saints in this one.
Yep, I think I might have revealed my picks a little bit earlier as well, and I think the
I designed the
Saints
questions that way.
I think the Saints will win this game with whoever they have at quarterback.
It could be you or me, and I think we'd still beat the Atlanta Falcons in this one. Next up, we've got the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. This one is, again, a really easy pick to make. Give me the Buffalo Bills on this one.
Yeah, few easy games this week with all the divisional games, and this one's not another one just like that with the Bills able to beat the Jets fairly easily at home.
Once again, it's another formality for us here, but we've got the San Francisco 49ers and the LA Rams. Once again, as a formality, give me the Rams.
See, I think I said my pick in this game as well, and I'm not going with the formality. I think the Rams' struggles continue, and the 49ers are able to capitalize and shock the world with a win in LA and guarantee themselves a playoff spot.
Next up, it's the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. Always a fun one here. I think I said a few weeks ago that the Dolphins could potentially beat the Patriots, but honestly, I don't think that's going to happen this week, especially with the Patriots fighting out for it all when it comes to the division championship, and ultimately the Dolphins having just lost all hope this week. So give me the Patriots on this one.
Yeah, the Dolphins season pretty much, they ended their own season last week, and I think the Patriots will come in and give the Dolphins another rough game to end the season, as Damian Harris will run right over the Miami Dolphins this week.
Next up, we've got the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals. Give me the Cardinals on this one. There's a reason I still have them in as my Super Bowl, at least NFC champion favorites.
Yeah, the Cardinals were able to beat a good Dallas Cowboys team this week, rebounding from their 3 straight losses, and I think they'll win again against the Seahawks this week.
Next up, it's the Carolina Panthers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't think there's any doubt in this one. Give me the Tampa Bay Bucs over the Panthers any day.
Yep, all you got to do is look at the quarterback situation with Sam Darnold versus Tom Brady, and no matter who they have behind them, that should tell you enough. And I'm going to take Tom Brady and the Bucs in this one.
And finally, our last pick of the entire 2021 regular season. It's the Chargers and the Raiders. Again, it's a formality at this point, but I'm going to have to pick the Chargers considering all the Raiders' distractions this week.
Yep, I'll end it on this note. The Las Vegas Raiders might be the most dysfunctional 9-7 team that we've ever seen play football. And I think that Eric will go 9-8 after the Chargers beat the Raiders this week on Sunday Night Football.
I mean, did you see the post-Super Bowl Flacco Ravens? Those were some pretty dysfunctional 9-7 franchises right there. But that is all we have time for. We're putting a wrap on the 2021 regular season, and we'll definitely be back for the playoffs next week, but I'm just so happy that we've gotten this far and are continuing to go as far as we can, really.
Yep. Week after week, grind after grind has been fun talking football. Any football fans should hopefully be enjoying it in the weeks that they listen. So we'll keep it up as long as the football season's going on, and then find out what we're doing in the off season to keep you guys entertained.
Absolutely, and we'll always be here next year, and we'll certainly be looking forward to it, but we're not going anywhere. But for now, we are going somewhere, because it's time for us to lock up and shut down.